Meghann. I miss you, and it's good to see you. And I've been following your exploits, and it's always good to talk to you.
Thank you. I didn't get to see you in New York, but I understand you were in the courtroom a couple of times. Not when I was there. I didn't get there until the very end of trial.
I got a tap on the shoulder early on from Marc Agnifilo, who took me to the principal's office, and so after that, I was just sporadically in the courtroom.
Okay. And what did he think you were like a distraction for the jury or the attorneys, or what was it? I mean,
it was actually His Honor wanted to see me, and His Honor wanted to talk to me and remind me of the various things. So it was reported at the time. I will not relive it, but I did come back to watch Teny's opening in the Diddy case, and I came back to watch part of her cross of Jane, and then some various other highlights. It was something. It was quite a. I don't know, Meghann, where would you rate it on your trials? Because I thought there used to be. I often talk about pre-Trump and post-Trump. Pre-Trump always was a trial of the century every May. That kind of took all the oxygen out. Trump won, that kind of faded away. But then during Biden, there was quite a few kind of trials of the century. Mm-hmm. And now we're back with a vengeance, at least from my standpoint.
No, I think this one stands out, and especially how unusual the charges was, how aggressive the charging was. And then the fact that he was acquitted on the two charges, that'll kind of make it go down in history. But it's not over yet, and everybody's waiting to see what's going to happen with the sentencing. But what's your take on that? First of all, what's your role in that? Can you help them at all, or do they have enough? It seems like he has enough attorneys. He's
got a. I mean, what a great lineup of attorneys. Brian Steele from your coverage of Young Thug, and yes. I've always been a Brian Steele fan. Brian forever entered the pantheon for me when he took off his coat and his tie and said, "Just going into custody, just put me in with my client." I love that, and I told him that the first time we met each other. But Marc Agnifilo I've known for years, and Mark was the co-lead with Teny, and I can't say enough good things about my daughter or Mark A. But some of the unsung heroes, Alexandra Shapiro.
Yes,
I don't know. Other than Cliff Gardner, who I did Menendez with, I think the two of them and her associate Jason Driscoll, Triple D, the two between Gardner and Alexandra Shapiro, what brains, what just knowledge, what the idea of the breadth and depth. And sometimes if you watched His Honor, who was also, I think, a Supreme Court clerk, and Alexandra, who was a Supreme Court clerk, I used to laugh. They're talking a language that virtually nobody else in the courtroom understands. And just fantastic. And then I think Nicole Westmoreland, correct?
From the YSL trial. I actually got to interview her like we're doing here. So that was fun.
Is what a tremendous lawyer. What an even better human being. I mean, and Anna, who did the cross of Cassie, which, by the way, one of my favorite things, because I'm such a snark, is to go back and watch the commentators who were second guessing the lawyering as it goes along.
Yeah.
And all of the people who were second guessing Anna, and she hit it out of the park. Second guessing Teny on Jane, hit it out of the park. Nicole, just wonderful. And Alexandra, as I said, what a phenomenal group of female criminal defense lawyers on that side of the ledger.
Yeah.
And from my standpoint, Leslie Abramson, who was talking about Menendez, who famously tried it, she was kind of one of the post Clara Shortridge Foltz Gladys Root tradition, where there was Leslie, and she was always a kind of a unicorn. And now you've got a half dozen, baker's dozen to pick from. So it's wonderful to see.
Well, was there any concern that there was too many? I know some judges will limit how many attorneys can have speaking roles just to kind of give the jury a break from that. Or was there any talk about that, or did you think
I think there's always a concern, especially post OJ. The part of the yin and yang of this is everybody who's got the resources wants a team because they think, well, OJ had a team and look at the results. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I heard a client tell me that. The problem with it is it really requires a very unique chemistry to get along. This team, from what I saw, and this is where hat tip to Marc Agnifilo. Mark, as the general manager, the Bill Belichick of this crew, really was phenomenal. And by the way, that closing, I don't think there's anybody who won't say that it's too bad it wasn't televised, because that would have been one that would have gone down in the annals.
Oh yeah, when I was reading it, I was like, this seems really brazen, but it's hard to know whether it's good or not until you see what the jury does. I mean, I was kind of wondering if the prosecutors had brought it home in closing, because I thought their closing, looking back, it seemed like a good closing for a bad case, because they did map out a legal route for the jury to convict on RICO. But it seems like their standard for, hey, you could convict just on 2 drug transactions. It's like, okay, well, on that standard, any frat boy in America could be convicted under RICO. But it seemed like you guys had some confidence in that the case had enough weaknesses that kind of a brazen closing like Mark's would work. I mean, was that the discussion, or can you get into that?
I will tell you the reason that I think it did work is if you were in the courtroom and observing jurors, I think you saw the jurors' reactions. And that is, as you know, unless you're in the courtroom, and even when it's televised, because it's verboten to televise the jurors, so you have to be in the courtroom. It's one of the reasons it's very hard to predict what's going to happen in a trial, because you can't see the jurors. If you know the jury composition, 99 times out of 100, the case is won or lost in jury selection. And if you know your case and you know your jurors and who you're picking, then unless famously, I remember George Zimmerman's case, and Mark O'Mara is a good friend. I consider Mark a very good friend. And after he picked the jury in Zimmerman, I had apparently, this is going back 10 years, had said on TV that the only way that Zimmerman would be found guilty is if O'Mara tripped and fell and hit his head. And he got very mad at me, but it was, and of course, Zimmerman was famously acquitted. And the jury selection means everything. And the reason I say that, in this long way of getting back to your closing arguments, or my view on that, is you're never, I don't care how good you are as a lawyer, you're not going to change somebody's perspective, their calculus, their moral outlook in 6, 8, 10 weeks. You're just not going to do it. All you have to do is go to a Thanksgiving dinner with your relatives and start talking politics. You're not going to change somebody who loves you dearly, who you've spent your whole life with. You're not going to convince them, of their politics change. So it's just not going to happen. So you need to be able to pick a jury that will resonate with the defense that you have. And by the time you get to closing, you need to arm the jurors who are going to drive the verdict with the arguments that they are going to prevail in. And you know what proof positive in this case was?
What?
I'm not letting you talk, and I apologize.
No.
But I've been under wraps. I was under a domestic violence restraining order by my daughter. The thing that convinced me of that, and in this case even more so, remember the last note. The jurors have opinions that are jurors on both sides are unpersuadable. Unpersuadable. I've never seen that in a jury note. Yet 90 minutes after they were given an instruction by His Honor to go back, no jury's going to be smarter than you. You've heard the evidence. 90 minutes later, they were persuaded on the RICO. And that tells me that if you gave them enough arguments that they would sleep, they can sleep on it, come around, and they can persuade.